Imagine the people you call friends breaking into your bedroom and knocking you unconscious, ganging up, and assaulting your girlfriend in your presence. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead in this video. The film begins in the winter in Wind River, Wyoming. A weeping young girl named Natalie is running desperately barefoot in the snow. It is evident something terrible has happened. She becomes exhausted and eventually falls down. A hunter named Cory shoots down the wolf, who's an agent of Fish and Wildlife. Cory drives right to the nearest town to visit his ex-wife, Wilma, who notices blood on his shirt, but Cory quickly tells her he got it from his work. He requests to accompany their son Casey's to his grandparents' home on the Indian Reserve. The tension between Wilma and Cory is palpable, so she tells Cory to look after their son and not lose sight of him before leaving. Wilma tells Cory that she has a job interview in another city, and they will need to discuss Casey's child support if she gets hired. Cory reassures her that everything will be alright because living expenses at the new school are significantly cheaper than the previous one. Cory's in-law, Dan, called on Cory to help him hunt down a predator that killed a yearling in the backyard of his house. Casey's grandfather urges Cory to follow the predator's footprints he finds in the snow. Cory then rides a snowmobile into the freezing mountains to find the predatory animal. He discovers blood and human footprints in the snow instead of a lion. Cory shut off the snowmobile engine before pointing the gun towards the woods. Once he follows the footsteps and gets closer, he discovers Natalie's corpse covered in snow and blood. The girl who desperately ran while yelling at the start of the movie, Cory, is emotionally touched because she was his late daughter's best friend. Then he makes an emergency aid request via the local tribal police phone. Cory meets and briefs the tribal police chief, Ben, as a snowstorm has already broken out. However, the chief declines his request since he needs to first get approval from the FBI to pull Natalie's body from the scene. Soon after, FBI agent Jane Benner arrives and wishes to visit the scene immediately. However, Ben and Cory advise her that if they were to get to the body scene, she would not make it through the 6-mile distance in the snowstorm and would die instantly. Casey's grandmother gives Jane snow clothes and asks her to return them since their granddaughter owns them. When Cory sees Jane dressed like his daughter, Emily Cory, his expression briefly goes blank. Ben, Jane, and Cory go over to the body. Jane looks at the corpse and asks if she has any identification on her, but Cory has already identified her as Natalie Hanson. When Jane noticed blood stains on her pants, she quickly labeled the incident a homicide. Cory believes Natalie was running when she passed out. Jane tries to figure out why a teenager should be out in the freezing mountains alone. She ran here, perhaps trying to get away from something or someone dangerous. Additionally, Cory believes the sub-zero air made her lungs flood with blood. Jane begs Cory to come along and assist her in the investigation since he's accustomed to this area. Sometimes later in the evening, Cory explained what happened to Natalie to his son Casey, who inquired about her death. Cory sadly tells him she faced the same fate as Emily in the cold. Jane learns from Ben that no one had reported Natalie's missing case, only what's known is that she had an unknown boyfriend among the drill rig's workers. Jane meets the autopsy doctor, who reveals that Natalie died of pulmonary hemorrhage due to the sub-zero air. Jane becomes upset and argues with the examiner because Natalie's body shows signs of being battered, repeatedly raped, and exhibiting indications of physical trauma. Since the FBI team can only come to the reservation if it is listed as homicidal, ruling out homicide in this case is not possible. She is now determined to continue with the investigations to solve the case with the help of Ben and Cory. Moments later, Jane and Ben visit Martin, Natalie's stepfather. Jane goes straight to talk to his wife in the bedroom and finds Martin's wife still crying for her daughter. Martin feels offended by Jane's actions because she treats him disrespectfully and insensitively. Later, when Cory knocks on the door, Martin answers and sobs uncontrollably in his comfort. They discuss how Cory dealt with the loss of his first daughter. Martin informs him that he can't steer the pain because, even if he tries, Natalie's memories still taunt him. He talks about Natalie's new boyfriend, but he doesn't know much about him. Since Natalie had turned 18, she was free to do anything without their hindrance. Martin tells Cory that he is simply tired of life because he has nothing left. First his son, Chip, became a heroin addict and left him. Martin tells Cory that he suspects his son's involvement in Natalie's rape and murder. If Cory discovers who committed this terrible crime, he assures Martin that he will inform him. Ben, Cory, and Jane set out to see Chip where he's hiding. Once Ben and Jane knock on the door, an inebriated man answers and immediately pepper sprays them. This gives Chip and his companion a chance to escape out the back door, but Cory hits them with the shovel to bring them to the ground. Jane smashes down the door and enters the cabin, but the spray causes her to lose her vision and become partially blind. The same guy with the firearm comes out of the blinds looking for her. In an attempt to protect herself, Jane shoots him firmly and takes him out. The police eventually captured Chip, Natalie's stepbrother and his associate. Upon discovering his stepsister had been raped and killed, tears streamed down Chip's face. He becomes enraged and suspects Natalie's boyfriend, Matt Rayburn, based on the fact that he's not Indian. Chip discloses Matt's location to Cory and his workplace. He works as a security contractor at the drilling rig, which is 20 kilometers away from here. That afternoon Cory shows Jane the snowmobile traces leading to the icy mountain. It's close to where they discovered Natalie's body the other day. The absence of the snowmobile's return tracks suggests that someone arrived before them and hasn't returned, which is surprising. Jane grew more interested in it and realized she had to go there for further investigation. Due to the fact that Jane isn't a tracker, Cory decides to lend a hand using his hunting expertise to see what they can find. They pursue the trail until it leads them to Matt Rayburn's mutated corpse in the snow. Furthermore, the first suspect's lifeless body complicates the case. Cory believes someone dumped him just recently. He then takes Jane to his house that evening, where he informs her about his daughter's disappearance 3 years ago. Emily went to Natalie's house party while their parents were away, with only her school friends in the house. Cory received a call from Natalie in the meantime informing him that Emily had vanished. A shepherd found Emily's dead body 30 kilometers away from his house, frozen in a pile of snow, and they couldn't learn anything because the coyotes dismembered her body. Moments later, Jane, Cory, and Ben needed extra help from the tribal police station. They collected more men and made their way to the drilling rig. Cory breaks off the main road and conceals his vehicle before grabbing his sniper rifle and snowmobile to make his way to the other side of the rig. Unbeknownst to him, other security guards are also crossing through the restricted zone, heading in the same direction. Cory spotted the lion's footprints that killed Dan's calf in his backyard and decided to follow its trail. When Jane and the cops show up, they encounter a number of guards whom she queries about Matt Rayburn's whereabouts. They're very reluctant to answer her questions. The guards' visibly bruised faces spark Jane's curiosity. However, the guards feel they did not have much time to engage in personal conversations but rather agreed to take Jane and other cops to Matt's caravan. But they continue repeating the same phrase, they don't know Matt's whereabouts. Cory eventually finds the mother lion on the verge of death lying in the cavern. Just then, he spots snowmobile tracks and abandoned cabins in the distance and becomes suspicious. The cops, Jane and Ben, follow the guards to Matt's cabin. However, the atmosphere grows more tense when one of them brings up Natalie's body, even though Jane has not mentioned her name. Moreover, it has not been disclosed to the public yet. According to the guards, they heard it on a police scanner. And immediately, the argument becomes heated when one of the guards pulls out the weapon and other guards encircle them gradually to turn the scene into an armed stalemate. However, Jane Banner breaks up the standoff because she's the highest ranking among them. When Cory calls Ben to warn him, he doesn't get a response. Then he grabs his rifle and runs in their direction. Jane taps on the door of Matt's caravan. Then the movie cuts to the night of Natalie's murder, where his boyfriend, Matt Rayburn, was in the restrooms. Natalie tapped on the front door, and Matt unlocked it. They shared private time that evening as they discussed going to a large city or warmer state. That instant, Matt's inebriated colleagues from the city showed up, cutting their discussion short. Pete, leading the intoxicated group, starts harassing Natalie. Following Matt's kick response from his bed, Pete attacks him back, and the others join the fight on Pete's side. They beat them and knock Natalie and Matt out. Pete awakens Natalie during molestation. The chaos then subsides as everyone longs for an opportunity. After escaping their grasp, Natalie watches in horror as her boyfriend's colleagues slaughter him. Then she desperately takes off, running barefoot into the cold. Now the film shifts back to Jane, who knocks on the locked door. Cory eventually gets to Ben and alerts him about the guards, but it's too late. Jane gets shot through the door before Ben can warn her. The full gunfire breaks out as they fire at one another. However, Pete pulls an automatic rifle and begins to fire at every point in his clear line of sight. When every police officer from the tribal police station is on the ground, the rig guard begins to kill the survivors. However, Cory uses his sniper rifle to take out one guard who was ready to kill Jane. She then ducks for safety under the caravan. Cory takes out another Pete's associate inside the cabin. Pete, left alone, decides to escape by breaking out of a window. Jane tries to shoot, but her shooting injures him before he desperately flees into the wilderness. Cory emerges from the snow to take Jane inside the cabin. Cory examines her wounds and determines that they are not life-threatening because her vest absorbed the majority of the bullet impact. Jane suggests that Cory use his radio to call for rescue before asking him to hunt Pete down. As Cory's snowmobile approaches, Pete hears it and tries to conceal himself, but Cory knocks him out. Then he dragged him to the top of the frozen mountain peak. Cory pulled Pete's boots off when he was unconscious. Cory promises to give him another chance if he confesses everything to him. Pete tried to talk himself out of the predicament. He acknowledges that after they gang-raped Natalie and killed Matt Rayburn by beating him, he and his friends dumped Matt in the snow to make his body disappear. Cory says he's a man of his word and has pledged to cut the restraints from Pete's hands. He orders Pete to run barefooted to save his life. Approximately 100 meters into his run, Pete begins to throw out blood and passes out. Thus, he passes away from pulmonary hemorrhage similarly to Natalie. Moments later, Jane is recuperating in the hospital from bullet wounds, and Cory is by her side complimenting her resilience. Next, Cory pays a visit to Martin, Natalie's father, sitting outside alone. Wearing his death mask, Martin informs him he was on the verge of quitting. However, his son Chip gave him a call to pick him up from prison. Martin and Cory are shown sitting outside in silence as the movie's ending statement states that all demographic groups' missing person statistics are maintained, with the exception of Native American women. These figures are still unclear. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more of my videos. Have a good day.